Welcome to Toon My Heart. Yes, that's Toon as in cartoon, because in this podcast we'll be taking a closer look at popular animated movies through a Christian lens, in search of faith-relevant themes and traces of eternal truth. I'm your host, Tracy Herold, and just a disclaimer, I'm not a Bible scholar, nor am I a film scholar. I'm just an animation fan who loves Jesus, and who wants to explore how the themes and ideas presented in some of my favorite films might resonate with the Christian faith and help remind us of what we believe, in sometimes surprising ways. So I hope you'll join me as we get animated about our faith. Hello, and welcome to a special Father's Day episode of Toon My Heart. Last month, we talked about our favorite animated moms. So, of course, this month, it's the dad's turn. We're going to be talking about favorite animated dads. And I'm going to have a couple of great guests on to talk about that subject. But before we get to them, I want to hear from you. So I asked on X, or Twitter if you prefer, the question of who are your favorite animated dads and why? And here are some of the responses that I received. Just like last time, I will put all of these handles in the show notes so that you can check them out and follow them if you'd like to. So if any names are not clear, just check the show notes for those. So first up, from Renewed Mind Reviews, the handle is at mine_Aaronwood. They say, Gunther from Ascendance of a Bookworm puts his family first and doesn't hesitate to protect them. He's masculine but also very emotional and bonded to his family, which is both good and a bit crazy at times. Otto, also from Ascendance of a Bookworm, is just beyond dedicated to his daughter, which is cute. And then they added, I think Aaron's father from Earthsea also deserves a shout out. He's a pretty good person, king, probably dad, who did not deserve his fate one bit. And then at Cookies Thin, she says, there are so many good animated dad examples that it's hard to pick a favorite. I would say that even though Tiana's father wasn't in The Princess and the Frog for very long, his influence is felt throughout the whole movie. In the little screen time he has, we see him encourage young Tiana in her cooking skills and helped her to share what she created with her neighbors. He worked hard to provide for his wife and daughter as well. He also gives sound advice, not just to Tiana, but I believe the audience as well, that it's good to dream, but you also have to work hard to achieve those dreams, and also to never lose sight of what's really important. We also learn indirectly that he may have died in service, highlighting his bravery and dedication. I think the audience can see a lot of James's positive traits in Tiana, and we can see Tiana's great love for her father, his dream, and his memory. Denise T, her handle is at DeniseKT052951. She says, Mufasa. He loves his spouse, a wonderful trait to hand down to his children. He teaches Simba humility, real strength. I'm only brave when I have to be. And shows by example the importance of family. Remember who you are. And he loves unconditionally. Then at Tor Y Harbin says, Robert Hawkins of Static Shock, if only because of how much he reminds me of my own dad. And then at King__Julian7 did not answer with words, but answered with 4 GIFs, which, being an elder millennial, I can definitely relate to the desire to communicate primarily through GIFs. So they showed Mr. Ping, Poe's dad from Kung Fu Panda, Marlin from Finding Nemo, Geppetto from Pinocchio, and of course, everybody's favorite dad, Bandit from Bluey. All great choices. And finally, Beneath the Tangles, with the handle at Anime Tangles, says, I think I speak for everyone when I say, anyone but show Tucker. If you know, you know. So those are some of your favorite animated dads. And if you would like to get a shout out and share your thoughts on a future episode of the show, make sure you keep an eye on my social media profiles. I'm on X, Instagram, and Facebook, all with the handle at Toon My Heart. Of course, that's TOON as in cartoon. I usually post these questions mainly on X, so that's the best place to follow. I did post this one on Instagram and Facebook as well, but I don't think I got any responses there. These were all from X. So would love to hear more thoughts from listeners and get to share more of your ideas and thoughts in response to my questions. So definitely keep an eye out for those and don't be shy. So next up, let's meet our guests for this episode and find out who their favorite animated dads are. So my two special guests for this Father's Day episode of Toon My Heart are Matt Williams and Bobby Benavides. And it's Matt, a.k.a. Rockin' Mr. Magic of Geek Nation. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt, and Geek Nation as well.
Yeah. One, thank you for having me, Tracy. It's a pleasure to be here. I am a father of 5, and I am a big kid at heart. Geek Nation is a podcast or content platform where we have the best conversations combining sports and geek. So my co-host and I, we were both former collegiate athletes who also happened to be, we were massive nerds. I was big into Star Trek and comic books and anime back in the 80s when it wasn't a cool or mainstream thing. He was a Star Wars kid and had, both in the Lego and just things that particularly within Black culture were not things that were favorably looked upon. We were more of like the Steve Urkel, good on the court, but also, had these things that weren't mainstream cool. So we started having conversations and started turning it into a podcast. And now we have 3 shows. And if you like sports and combining the geek world, if you like deep dives on sports or pro wrestling, we have a show for you.
Cool. All right. Well, I think you guys are tied on the number of children. So let me introduce our other guest, Bobby Benavides. He's a stand-up comedian from West Virginia, and he also has a podcast called Taking Up Your Time. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Bobby?
Yeah. Hey, and again, I'm going to repeat what Matt said, but yeah, thanks for having us, man. It's going to be a good time. I'm excited to be with you. I am a father of 5. I have 4 boys, 1 girl. It's a great time. The girl was the second one, so she knows that she's the princess, and she will tell you that. But yeah, I've been doing stand-up comedy in West Virginia. I have several different roles. I'm a pastor. I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm also a fatherhood coordinator with WVU with the Happy Project. So I do a lot of work with dads. I have Taking Up Your Time podcast, and I also have my comedy special, Taking Up Your Time, on YouTube, which is free. So everybody should watch it, and that'd be awesome because it's free. So I'm going to keep saying it's free.
All right. So since we're talking about dads and you're a comedian, I have to ask, what's your favorite dad joke?
Man, so there's so many dad jokes out there. They're all just fun to do. But there's one that I do all the time because it's a long story, but to make it short, there was a girl I was dating in high school. We were walking down I'm from Glendora, California originally. And we're walking in downtown Glendora, and it felt like we were by ourselves. And all of a sudden, this like elderly gentleman shows up out of nowhere and just tells me this joke. And he says, "Why do all coliseums get so hot when the game is over?" And my girlfriend and I just looked at him like, "We don't know." And he says, "Because all the fans are gone." And I was like, I did a pity laugh to him, but then it also prepared me to get all the pity laughs I get when I'm on stage. So it kind of was like, all right, cool, I got that, but but that is probably one of my favorite ones is.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you got it from a mysterious stranger. That's kind of fun.
I don't know. He just kept walking. Like he didn't like have a conversation with us. He just tapped me on the shoulder, told me that joke, and then just kept going. And I was like, I'm a spirit animal. I don't know what it was.
That's awesome. All right, so today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite animated dads in honor of Father's Day. So we've each chosen a character to talk about, and I guess I'll go first. So the character that I chose is Goofy from a Goofy movie. I mean, obviously he's in a lot of things, but I think his fatherhood role shines through in a Goofy movie the most, of course. And when I was thinking about who to choose for this episode, I was thinking about Disney's main 5 or 6 characters. You know, Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Minnie, Daisy. Goofy's the only one who has a child and presumably had previously settled down and married a woman. We don't know who she is or anything like that, but he's kind of like, even though he's Goofy, he's the only one who's really grown up. I mean, Mickey and Minnie are still dating. Mickey still hasn't put a ring on it. And Donald, to his credit, he did kind of adopt his nephews or take care of his nephews. So
Yeah.
good for Donald.
And he's still chasing Daisy. He's trying to make that nuclear family.
Yeah, he's trying to make it work, but I've always questioned where Donald's sibling was, or whatever that made him Uncle Donald, or if it was just like a friend that ended up in like rehab. I don't know. But
it's his sister.
Yeah.
They changed her name. Her name used to be Dumbella, and then they changed it because calling her dumb is not very, beyond not being PC. It's just not nice.
Yeah.
So then they changed her name to Della.
Huh.
But yeah, it is. They are his legitimate nephews.
Yeah.
And he is legitimately Uncle Scrooge's nephew.
Look at that.
Yeah. Now, I'm a huge Donald Duck fan, so I know way too much about Donald Duck.
I love that.
Yeah. The newer DuckTales, I think it was 2017 that it came out.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into the whole lore and actually introduces Della and explains, how the nephews ended up with Donald and Scrooge and all of that. So it's actually really good.
I like Bobby's, kind of Bernie Mac story version of Donald got the kids, love them kids, but I've said this, I don't know, I'm no stand-up comedian, but I thought it was funny. If you took Donald Duck and Huey, Dewey, and Louie and merged them with the Bernie Mac show, you would have like the perfect comedy, because he's Donald Duck essentially. He's like, I love these boys, I take care of them, but I can't stand these kids.
I was thinking like maybe she had a gambling problem, and that's why that's why Scrooge McDuck is like a big deal for them, because it's like she was like, hey, get there, get the money, and then Donald got in on it and was like, no, man, I'm taking these kids in. You need to go get taken care of, and then that's where it all. See, like,
we're here writing some Donald Duck fan fiction.
Yes.
Yeah, this could all get edited out. I don't know.
All right.
Whatever you want to do.
A little off track, but no, it's okay. So back to Goofy. Yeah, I don't know if you guys grew up on the Goofy movie like I did. I mean, I was a teenager when it came out and like kind of felt like I was probably too cool to watch it, but really wanted to watch it and did. And then it was about a teenager and his dad. So it was really relatable. And of course, when I watched it as a kid, I related to Max. But when I watch it now as an adult, I'm starting to see things more from Goofy's point of view. My daughter is not a teenager quite yet, but she's on her way. And you can really relate to that struggle of, how do you deal with your child maturing and not necessarily wanting to spend time with you anymore and thinking they're too cool for you? And how does that relationship change? Do either of you have older kids?
I do.
Yeah, my oldest is 13. Yeah.
I have old kids. So unlike Bobby, I have 4 girls and 1 boy. So polar opposites on that. Also, my boy is the second child, which
that's crazy.
That's funny.
Just a flip of yours.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, my oldest, she's 30. My son is going to be 28 in a couple months, and then I have a 17-year-old, and then the twins, they just turned 16 in March.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids are all older and some grown now. So I relate to Goofy a lot in that where he is with Max. I also had a bunch of friends who I saw who were single fathers that I understood where Goofy was.
Mm.
I was a little older too when the movie came out. So I always viewed the movie from Goofy's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized the struggle that Goofy had Because on the surface, we look at Goofy like, okay, he's Goofy. He's going to mess things up. He's going to say silly stuff and he's not cool. But when you are cognizant of what being a father is, especially a single father, where you don't have the support that others have. And unlike, Donald, who technically also is a single father, Donald has a support structure with Daisy and Uncle Scrooge that Goofy doesn't have. He doesn't have anyone else to lean on when it comes to raising Max. It's just him. So yeah, there was a lot of lessons and correlation that I saw, with some of my friends who were single fathers that are really prevalent within the Goofy movie. And I think that's why it resonates particularly within Black American subculture on why Goofy and Goofy movie in particular resonates so strong.
Yeah. You mentioned like Goofy doesn't have a support system. Like the only person that he has giving him advice in this movie is Pete. And of course, Pete's like, just keep your kid under your thumb, be a dictator. And as Christians, it's important to be a leader for our children, right? But at the same time, how does that change, especially as they get older and they need to learn to take care of themselves and have more independence?
Yeah, I think that, now it was funny. It was like when I watched it from both perspectives because I had a single father. My biological mom passed away when I was 2 years old. So like my dad raised me by himself. So for me, it's like I was watching it knowing as a kid, like I was like, okay, I want to be like Max, but I also understand like where probably Goofy's coming from because my dad's like kind of wanted me to be around, but also we didn't have the greatest relationship. So I was trying to like push myself away from him because he was the Pete character, I guess, in a way. He wasn't a Christian or like that. So my dad was a Buddhist. And so it was kind of like, it was a weird tension at times. And so for me, though, it was like, I think watching it, I saw from both perspectives. But coming back to your question, though, the idea of like watching the kids kind of start to move on and then loosening our grip a bit as we see them kind of get older. And we have to remind ourselves that, it's that raising them up correctly, hopefully you're raising them up to where they can carry whatever you taught them well and just trusting in that process. But then also, I think we have to come to a realization of our own that, man, we are getting older ourselves, and that I think is sometimes the hardest thing is that we are the ones that are aging and we have to let that part continue moving forward.
Yeah. There's that conversation that Goofy and Pete have in the hot tub where Pete is telling him, your kid is tricking you, and Goofy doesn't believe him. And Goofy says, I know my son isn't perfect, but he loves me. And then Pete's response is, my kid respects me. It's an interesting thing to put love versus respect. I think we do want both of those from our children, but can they necessarily really respect us if they don't love us?
It's a fair question. I know myself, I can respect someone without loving them.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to respect them if you love them. And I appreciate Goofy movie for these very real themes of parenthood. Even though Pete is always traditionally and always will be a villain, he's not 100% wrong in a lot of the advice that he's giving. There's a balance that we should be seeking, in my opinion, to train them up in the proper way. And it's really interesting because he's like, hey, my kid respects me. And that's what you want. And at times I've felt that way. I have felt like, you know what? Because I've been a teenager. I had a understanding come to me in my early 20s, like, oh, wow, you know what? My parents were right about a lot of these things. And I have had times and like, you know what? Kid, you can hate me now. Cool. I'm going to do the right thing, raise you God's way. And if you hate me when you're a teenager, so be it. I'd rather you hate me now and choose the right path when you're 22, 23, 24, 25, and respect me and let the love come back when you realize that I did right by you. It's a tough thing because a lot of times we want to go for the ooey gooey, cushy, feely goody lovey when that's not always the right path. But if we can blend them, that's obviously the optimal desire.
Yeah. It's about finding balance. I mean, you do have verses like Colossians 3:21 that says, fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. So it's finding that balance because obviously, discipline and steering them in the right direction is important. A lot of times people will say, you're not supposed to be your kid's friend. You're supposed to be their parent. Obviously, Goofy leans more towards wanting to be his kid's friend. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we are supposed to have a relationship with our kids. And so there should be that balance of love and respect, I think. Not just love and letting them do whatever they want, but also not, I feel like Pete's version of being respected is more being feared.
Yeah. I feel like it's like a cause and effect type of thing, right? It's like you want them to respect you because they love you and because they realize that you love them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like that respect is going to come from your love and their love for you. But like they might love you, but they don't need to respect you. There's a tension, right? It's like
Yeah.
you expect them to respect you because they love you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like everything else. Like you have to earn their respect. I mean, like I loved my dad. Like I mean, this is just me being a real transparent like in this piece, but like I loved my dad, but I had a hard time respecting my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because I was being like, filled with angst or whatever. Like I felt like I was a decent kid, but I was one of those kids where it's like, I saw a lot of things my dad did that his character was flawed and he did a lot of things that were wrong. And, he was very verbally, physically, emotionally abusive, but he would also rip off the system a little bit. And I knew what he was doing. And so I couldn't respect that. I still loved him, but I couldn't respect it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that for many dads, I think sometimes we have to realize that we don't just instantly get respect. They'll love us, but we don't instantly get respect from them. But they're going to respect us because we love them and that they know we love them by the things that we do to show that we love them.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do the things that are respectful, our character is strong, we're honest, we are not doing things that challenge our integrity, our reputation is strong in the community or with other people, then now that's where the respect starts to build because they realize that we're not questionable people. Like they can honor that. So that's kind of, for me anyway, that's kind of how I see it, is that I want to earn their respect by showing them I'm a person they should respect.
Yeah.
But I want them to love me because I'm their dad.
Yeah.
The friend versus parent thing, I've dealt with a lot of that. I'll be very transparent. That's been a point of contention when our kids were younger between my wife and I. She was more on the friend. And it's a very common thing you hear amongst us in the Black community. We say to our kids, I'm not one of your little friends. I am your parent. I love you. We have a relationship. Our relationship is unique from as a parent-child than it is as a friend. And there's a balance there. And I think that that is important personally because I know how I am with my friends. And while I love and respect my friends, I have freedom to be cavalier. Friends can roast each other.
Mm-hmm.
I've never roasted my parents in my life, nor would I ever. I can't even conceptualize roasting my parents in life. But that's something that I do with my friends. I tell my friends to shut up. I can't put my mouth together to tell my parents to shut up.
Yeah.
I've seen kids say it to their parents, and I've been flabbergasted. And I know cultural differences, upbringing differences, but I could never not honor my parents in that aspect, partially because of who they are and how good they've been to me, but also because of my upbringing in a Christian home. So there's so many factors into that because if we're raising our children in a Christian home, we are enforcing that we're not supposed to be bringing them to wrath, but that also they should be loving and honoring and respecting of us as parents. And we should be reflecting that as parents by how we love and honor and respect God.
Right.
And if they can see us have that relationship with God, they can mimic that relationship, with us.
Yeah. Those two commands go side by side. Fathers, don't provoke your children, but children, honor your father and mother. So I was thinking about Proverbs 3:12. The Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. So again, there is a place for correction, but it is paired with love. It's loving correction. It says he reproves him whom he loves, the son in whom he delights. I think maybe where Pete goes wrong is his son does not feel like his father delights in him. But back to Goofy, he's doing his best. He's a single dad. He's trying to figure out how to have this relationship with his son. He doesn't want to lose him, and he's afraid of doing so. And what I like about Goofy is at the end of the movie, he does encourage his son, hey, you need to do the right thing and tell this girl that you lied to her. Even though they went to that concert and made it happen so that it could look like he really was friends with Powerline. When they got home, it wasn't, okay, we did it, son, good job. He said, you need to have integrity.
You need to be honest and tell this girl what really happened. Let's get things back on the right foot here. So he's definitely not a perfect dad, but you can see that he loves his son and he's trying his best. And he does have integrity. Proverbs 27, the righteous who walks in his integrity, blessed are his children after him. And I think at the beginning of the movie, obviously, Max's nightmare is that he's going to turn into his dad. I think by the end of the movie, he's realized that becoming like his dad would not be such a bad thing because his dad is the man of integrity and a man who loves him and is doing his best. So, who wants to go next?
Matt, I'll hand it over to you, man. I'll let you go in. I'm actually interested in hearing about this one. So,
Okay, I'll go then. So Chief Benja, for those listening who don't recall, Chief Benja is the father of Raya from Raya and the Last Dragon. He's not a popular animated dad. You're probably not going to find him on anybody's, top 10 animated dads list.
Mm-hmm.
Chief Benja, to me, is one of the best depictions of fatherhood that Disney has done. Popular culture tends to make fathers bad fathers. They don't interact with kids, they're lazy, they're dumb, they don't know what's going on. Fatherhood gets very disrespected a lot in popular media. Chief Benja is an excellent example of a good father. Coincidentally, everybody that we've selected are single fathers, which is very interesting. I just realized I think everybody chose a single father here. But Chief Benja really stood out to me, again, particularly as a father of 4 girls, in that unique dichotomy where you are raising someone who is similar to you, yet so very different. Can have the same thoughts that you have, but comes about them differently, has a different pathway to getting to that same conclusion. And Chief Benja has a job where, as chief, he is, bringing up his daughter to essentially replace him. So it reminds me a lot of, when Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ, he is actively imitating things that his daughter needs to be able to reflect as a leader and for their people. And there are so many biblical aspects within his character that I just noticed as I'm watching this film. Blessed are the peacemakers. He is actively trying to initiate peace amongst all their people. And he's taking that first step towards peace by having everyone come. He's protecting what is sacred and teaching his daughter how to protect what's sacred amongst them. There's so many aspects within Chief Benja that I love as fathers are so important. Christ advocates us to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Benja was trying to do that balance. He's like, okay, Raya, we have to protect this. We can't let anybody come in here and steal this. We have to be careful of everybody. And Raya's like, if we got to be careful of everybody, why are we letting these people who have been enemies, essentially, enemies that were at odds with their best for my entire life, why are we letting them in if we have to be so careful? And Benja is able to, explain to her, and obviously the adventure explains more, but he's like, hey, we've got to extend the olive branch, for lack of a better term. And so many great lessons in such a short time, because he's not on screen a lot, but he's got like 10 minutes where he is putting out all these fantastic life lessons. So he just really is a fantastic example of fatherhood.
Yeah, like you said, he's just there for like the first, 10 or 15 minutes?
Yeah, it's like 15 at the max.
Yeah, but kind of sets up the theme of the movie, or, what Raya needs to learn in the course of the movie. You had so many great thoughts there. I was rewatching it last night, and definitely Blessed Are the Peacemakers was the verse that I thought of. And it was interesting because his land, his kingdom, whatever you call it was the most prosperous. So he didn't really have anything to gain by trying to make peace with the other lands.
Yeah.
He just wanted to do it because it was the right thing to do. But it was also a risk. And being a peacemaker is risky. A lot of people will think that that's the easy route or the weak route, but it takes strength and it takes being willing to put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable as he did. And people might look at, well, he got stabbed in the back, but it was still the right thing to do, as we see by the end of the movie. It's beautiful when you get to the end and his dream, he basically wakes up and his dream has come true of
Yes.
the lands reuniting. But yeah, it's that balance. Like, even though he wanted peace, he was still training his daughter for battle, basically, and being able to survive and protect this treasure that they had.
Yeah, and it's really tough. And I can relate so much with Chief Benja because when this movie came out, my youngest three, they were preteens. So they were just about to enter the teenage phase. And having three teenage girls at the same time is it's an undertaking, to say the least.
Yeah.
I mean, having teenagers, period, is tough. But, for a father with his girls, there's a difference there. And when you are, as a father, preparing your daughters for what it potentially is some of the toughest years of their life, it is preparing them for battle.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to prepare them to go out there and deal with all the societal pressures of beauty expectations, of, relational expectations, and then you have cultural expectations. One of my 17-year-old, I've raised her since she was 2, but she's my niece. She has cerebral palsy. So she has to deal with the battle of acceptance, of navigating her disability out there in the world. My twins, they have to deal with a lot of a racial aspect, being that they're mixed, and they have to deal with cultural things on both sides. And it is battle for them. In the battlefield of the mind that occurs at the teenage years it's so tough. You have all this input coming from so many different directions. And Raya had that, she had voices from her friends saying, oh, this is what you should do. And her own ideas that, oh, this is what we should do. Should I listen to dad? Should I not listen to dad? So the preparing for battle is tough. And kind of like where the teenage years are, you're kind of frozen because then now they're almost adults. They have, rights that, your states and governments will give them that you don't think they should have at their age. They can refuse medicine. They can refuse to go to the hospital. They can say, don't tell my parents, that I've had this procedure or that procedure. You're cut off and you're essentially like Chief Benja. You're stuck. You're almost mummified and you can do nothing but watch as they go through these trials and tribulations. And your hope and your thought and your prayer is that when it comes out in the end, you will see that the fruits of your labor have not been in vain and that they've made the right choice. So Chief Benja is so very reflective of raising teenagers in this current modern era.
Yeah. Wow.
Good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's an interesting metaphor of him being frozen then and just having to metaphorically trust that she's going to follow through on what she's been taught. It's that proverb, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. You're not always going to be there to make sure that he's not departing from it. So hopefully you've trained him or her up in the right way. And with Raya, it was hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
Yes.
And she was able to survive without him when things went bad. Any other thoughts on Chief Benja?
I would just encourage anybody, if they hadn't recognized these things, rewatch the movie.
Yeah.
But also to be encouraged by Chief Benja. Because so often, like I said earlier, we see particularly fathers, they're made to be buffoons. And he's a great example of a character that you can emulate and draw positivity from. So just, be loving, be shrewd. And one thing I'll say with Chief Benja that often is tough with girls, particularly once they are, become teenagers and they really start to develop into womanhood, continue to be hands-on with your children, especially with your daughters. It is natural to kind of want to step back and let mom, if she's available, to really take a lead in that because, as a father, it's impossible for me to relate to my daughters when they're on their period. And they are dealing with the emotions that are just going back and forth and some of the instability that they feel. It's impossible for me to relate to that. And we often just want to step back and put our hands up and say, like, okay, I can't deal with that. But it's something that we need to be able to not let go of. Is, I can't understand what you're going through. I've never experienced that. That doesn't mean I'm letting go. That doesn't mean I'm not going to still be here to support you and help you in any way I can. And I learned throughout the years because having my oldest be 30, I went to her teenage years and I was like, you know what? When this time of the month is coming, I'm at the grocery store, I'm buying a big bag of chocolate. I know I can't really do much for them, but you know what? I can help ease them through this time. So, fathers, don't be hands off. Continue to be hands on with your daughters. You're not going to understand everything they go through. You're not going to be able to understand all the wash and the massive amount of emotions that they're processing. And sometimes it blows my mind, all the emotion they process at one time. But just keep your hands on them. Be there, be present, be active, and be supportive, and go through the process and just don't let go.
That's so important. Great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, should we move on and talk about Marlin from Finding Nemo, Bobby's choice?
Yeah, talking about Marlin, I always laughed at the character because before I had kids, I was like, oh man, like this is crazy, like this dad's ridiculous. And then I had kids, I'm like, no, I get it. Because you get a little anxious,
Mm.
You get anxious when you're raising your kids, especially if you have kids that might have like just different issues, like it might be physical issues, it might be emotional issues, they could have like shyness and just kind of like not wanting to be around other people. So you're trying to figure out like, okay, so you try to protect them a little bit. You don't want them to have their feelings hurt. So you put them in their little bubble, and then when you realize that the bubble has to kind of pop, it gets you a little nervous and you get a little bit concerned. And that's what happened with Marlin. He knew that his son had his developmental issue, with the fin that was smaller than the other fin. And he's trying to figure out how to raise that kid properly, but also trying to protect the kid because he lost his wife to the barracuda. They ate all the eggs and left Nemo there. And so he's trying to figure that out. And then just kind of watching how he maneuvered through his anxiety. He's like, okay, I'm watching my son about to go to school and like, what's going to happen? And then he gets really nervous. And so he's like, well, maybe we're just not ready. Can't be, I'm not ready yet. And one of the Bible verses I thought about was, I believe it's in Romans, where it says, for you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into that fear. I'm paraphrasing, but basically like you get caught up in it. And, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to make it, right? I don't know if I'm going to make this, and I'm not sure if he's going to make it. So I'm going to pull him back. And then, just watch him kind of go through the process of just, I'm going to fight for everything to get my kid back. The kid disappears and he doesn't know what's going on. And he's just doing everything he can, but he gets through his own fears to get his child back. When I think about that, one of the things I thought about as a parent, but also, I was a youth pastor before I was a pastor. One of the things I would coach parents on is, listen, we're raising our kids, but we have to be raising our kids with open hands, right? Because there are kids here on earth, but they're God's kids. Whatever God wants to do with them, he's going to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to allow ourselves to say, okay, God, like we've done what we can. We got to trust their ability to be the people that we've raised them to be, and we got to trust that they're going to be able to survive. And we have our fears, we have our concerns. But again, when we start feeling that fear, like, are we allowing ourselves to get drowned out by that fear? Or are we going to look to who can provide us freedom from that fear, right?
Mm.
And so if they're God's kids and we're God's children, then we should be looking to God as our Father and saying, God, like, give me the peace to trust that my kid's going to make it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and go through all the feelings of watching my kid go through whatever. And sometimes we won't know, right? Like you were talking about the chief, like he didn't know what was going on, but he just got to sit back and say, okay, like I'm going to believe that he's okay, that everything's going to be fine. But what Marlin did, though, too, in his fight to get to Nemo, right, was demonstrate what we should be doing as parents, is that we may not know what's going on with them outside of us, but fighting for them through prayer, through seeking wisdom, through being ready for when we do interact with them again. Like, how are we going to respond to them? How are we going to be able to connect with them and make sure that they know that we continue to stand for them and we will continue to fight for them and we're going to continue to be their parent, but letting go of what we think they should be, because Marlon had an idea of what Nemo was supposed to be. But when we let go of what we think they should be and allow them to be who God created them to be, all of a sudden we see the masterpiece, the workmanship that God made them into, right? Ephesians, right? We see that where it's like, oh, you're God's workmanship, creating Christ Jesus to do great things, right? Like we got to see what that workmanship is going to be. But if we control it too much, we might be hindering the workmanship that God's trying to show into the world through our kids. And so that was kind of why Marlon always like intrigued me, because it's like, as a parent now, I have to remind myself that, all right, I can either hold on to my kids so tight where they aren't going to suffer, they're not going to struggle, they're not going to have any pain, or I let them mature and grow up and go through what they have to go through. And I have to stand back and let God do the work in that and reveal himself through it. Just be the parent I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, that's good. To be fair to Marlin, I think he had PTSD, understandably.
Yeah.
But I struggle with anxiety, so I do find him relatable. And there's definitely that, having to learn to let go little by little as it's appropriate. I mean, you shouldn't let your toddler wander off alone, obviously. But as your kids get older, you do have to start giving them some more freedom to live their lives and to figure things out on their own, like you said. It's hard.
Yeah, and I'm watching, like, my 13-year-old just recently was like, "Hey, Dad," because, we live in a pretty decent neighborhood where they can ride around on their bikes and stuff. He's like, "Well, can I go ahead and go down the hill to go somewhere else?" And I was like, I don't know." Like, I was just like, "No, you
Yeah.
can't." And then I looked at my wife, and my wife's like, "Well, I think he can go to the library by himself." And I'm like, "But he's 13." Like, I'm like, Okay, I'm like, do it, but let me know what's going on, and like, and he was gone with his friend to the library. And, like, I mean, it's a library, like, I knew he was there, safe space. And I'm glad that he chose the library. But I was sitting back going, like, I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know where he's at. Should I go down there? Should I go check on him? But I was like, okay, I got to hold back and let him prove that he can show back up at the house on time, and he's not doing anything destructive, and that, he's doing things right. And sure enough, he showed up when he was supposed to. And, he's like, oh, I was at the library. And next time I'll take my backpack so I can bring books back. And I was like, yeah, get smart. That's fun. Like,
Yeah, they're not going to learn responsibility if we don't allow them to have responsibility.
yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of us who are Gen X, early millennials, we were culturally raised in a time where the television had to remind parents, hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the younger generations, they think that we were making this up. We're like, no, this was a public thing that went on the television and said, hey, parents, check around. Are your kids home? Because we were outside.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of the helicopter parenting that you see done by Gen X and millennial parents is a trauma response from just being out there. And not, thankfully, I was blessed to have parents who were present and, made sure I was home when the street lights came on. But I had a lot of friends who were out there and it was 10, 11 o'clock at night and the parents like, oh, they ain't home yet. And they was like, oh, well, they'll be home soon eventually. Because, there was no cell phone,
Mhm.
there was no Find My, there wasn't any tracking. So because we knew what we had lived through, we're a bit more cautious because we knew sometimes we were out there getting into stuff that we had no business getting into.
Mhm.
And now that we have some advents of technology that allow us to be more cognizant of where our kids are and what our kids are doing, and we know what trouble we either got ourselves into or we're close enough to just not get burned, we don't want that same thing for our children. So we tend to want to be like Marlin and keep them as close as possible because we don't want them getting into that danger.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I struggle relating to people with high anxiety because I don't experience it. I took worry not for tomorrow, literally, like I'm not worried. I just don't get worried about a lot of things. My wife is the opposite. So, so like my wife's like, I don't think they should go down to this park. I'm like, well, let them go. Let's let them go to the park. I was going biking to the park at 6, 7 years old. Let's let them go to the park. But how about we give them a walkie-talkie? It's got like a 5-mile range and they check in with us. Cool. Happy meeting.
Mhm.
Kid can go out there and be a kid. But when our parental antenna are saying, I don't know, we can check in with them.
Mhm.
So like Marlin, another really good example of a father, a realistic example of the trauma response,
Mhm.
to the losing his wife and children, and that protective shield that he put around Nemo out of fear and love. And I think the biggest lesson for me out of Marlin's story in Finding Nemo is that you don't want another tragedy to have to be what breaks your kid out of the protective shell that you put around them that was initially erected out of fear.
Mhm.
You want to protect your kids within reason, but you don't want to have another trauma be the reason why you have to give them some space. Because now that's an additional trauma that is upon you and the kid.
Yeah. And I think that, ultimately when you watch it, it's like you realize too, like it's the last thing he has,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? It's the last thing he had from his relationship, from his wife, from, all the other kids. Like it was the one thing that he had. And, I think about my dad. I mean, he had a lot of issues, depression, anxiety, fear, stuff like that, but he wasn't overbearing on me. He just became very aggressive because of it. But the fact of the matter is that I was the last surviving thing that he had of the love of his life. My biological mom was the love of his life. Like he loved her in middle school, and then stuff happened, and then they finally came back together, got married, and then they have me, and then 2 years later, boom, she has a heart attack and dies. And his thing was now it's like he didn't want to fail as a dad, but he knew that he was making some failure stuff. Like things were failing in our family. And I'm sure with Marlin, that's a part of the thing too. Is like, dude, I have this last thing. I don't want to fail.
Yeah.
And I think for dads too, is like, we don't want to fail. And I think sometimes we think that if we allow our kids to go through struggle, we're the ones failing. But in reality, like this is what we have to remember is that when we struggle, growth can happen, right? I mean, we see that in scripture. Like, consider it pure joy, right? When you go through trials. Why? Because it develops perseverance. It's like when our kids go through the struggle, the trials that they go through, we as parents have to say, okay, now how do we help them understand what can be taught through this? What can we be showing them through this? When we're willing to let them go through it, they might say, why are you letting us go through it? It's like, well, I think we can ask God the same thing sometimes. God, why are you making us go through this? Well, God's like, because I want you to remember who you have trust in. Remember who I am for you. And so when we are parents, it's like, let them go through it. We can be pursuing them, but allowing them to go through what they have to go through. So that way, at the end of the day, they'll remember my parents loved me so much. They allowed me to go through stuff in order to grow. And they taught me how to handle struggle, how to handle pain, how to handle hurt, how to handle whatever I'm going through. And then at the end of the day, like Marlin and Nemo were connected again, and then we get a sequel. And that's
Yeah. Wow. Some really good thoughts here. I have really enjoyed this discussion. Do we have any other thoughts on Nemo before we move on? Or on Marlin?
I think one thing that's great about Marlin that can be encouraging to fathers, especially those who deal with the anxiety, fear that Marlin was dealing with, is that when it came down to, I'm going to use a very old phrase, but when it came down to brass tacks, Marlin did what he had to do as a father for Finding Nemo. And I would encourage fathers to, while your kid is seemingly out of reach and you're fighting for your kid, realize that growth is happening for you through there as well. Because that's ultimately what the movie is about. It's about Marlin's growth as he is fighting for his child. He's trying to get to his child. He grows in bravery. He grows in courage. He grows in just his problem solving. He grows in friendship. He had shut everybody out, and eventually Dory becomes his friend. He grows in being able to trust her as they go about trying to find Nemo. So there's so much development of Marlin through this ordeal. And while it is disheartening when your kids are going through tough times that you ultimately don't have any control over while you're fighting for what's right for them, and you're in prayer or you're battling the school because they're mistreating your kid and you've got to go before a school board or their jobs disrespecting them, whatever you're doing to fight for your kid, there is growth, there is development there for you. And hopefully, your kids will see that growth as well and understand what that means for you and for them, moving forward in your relationship as parent and child.
Yeah. Wow.
Good.
Some great thoughts. This has been an awesome discussion. I've really enjoyed kind of getting to know you guys through talking about these animated dads and our perspectives on them and so many different ways to look at fatherhood. like you noted, Matt, all three characters that we chose are single fathers, but they're all very different characters and kind of show different aspects of fatherhood and how fathers can relate to their children. And, I think give us some examples of what to do and also some examples of what not to do. But I felt like the common thread was balance. With Goofy, it's balancing love and respect, or love and discipline. And Chief Benja, it's balancing that hopefulness with preparedness. And of course, Marlin, balancing our desire to protect with our desire to see our kids grow and have freedom. So all great lessons. And I think ultimately, obviously, we can look at our Heavenly Father for the ultimate example of all of these things. He loves us. He also disciplines us because he loves us. He wants to protect us, but he won't protect us from everything because, like you said, Bobby, our trials help us to grow. And then he wants us to be peacemakers, but he also wants us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves, like you said, Matt. He wants us to be prepared for the slings and arrows of the world, but also to seek to make the world a better place in his name. So lots of great thoughts, and I really appreciated the discussion. I think our listeners will really enjoy it. So before we close things out, I just want to make sure that our listeners can find you guys online. So let's start with Matt. Where should they look for you online?
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Probably best place is Facebook. Pod.link is the best place to go for finding the podcast. You can just search Cheek Nation. But if you're like a Spotify user, Apple Podcasts, search Cheek Nation and you'll be able to find our shows. If you like interacting on Sports and Geek, we have a Facebook group as well as a Discord where we discuss those things. And coming soon, we're going to be doing, it's been 20 years since Marvel's Civil War dropped, so we're going to be having discussions on 20 years later and adding that as a special segment to the original Jeek podcast. So
yeah, we'll include links to all of those in the show notes, of course.
Yes, I'll give you my link tree, so it's nice and easy.
Perfect. Awesome. And Bobby, where can listeners find you online?
Yeah, you can go to bobbybcomedy.com and you can see all my stuff there. You can find me on YouTube on Bobby B. So it's BOBBY, capital B, space comedy, because apparently there's another Bobby B comedy out there. But if you run it up there, he's Asian. I'm not. So it should be pretty easy to figure that one out. But just in case. But yeah, and I'm on all the social, but you go on bobbybcomedy.com and you can find all my stuff there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again for a great discussion about fathers, and I hope you both have a great Father's Day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that does it for this special Father's Day episode of Toon My Heart. I hope you enjoyed it. I have really enjoyed both this episode and the Mother's Day episode, and just the conversations that these characters sparked. And I would love to hear from you, whether you enjoyed these episodes and whether you would like this to be a recurring thing that I do every year, with inviting some moms and dads on to talk about their favorite mom and dad characters. Please feel free to email me. The email address is toonmyheartpodcast@gmail.com. You can also always reach me on social media. Again, I'm on X, Facebook, and Instagram with the handle @toonmyheart. And I always appreciate your interaction, your feedback. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like or follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening so that you will be notified about future episodes. And if you have a little extra time, I would love it if you would hit that 5-star button or even leave a review. And I'd like to dedicate today's episode to my dad. Happy Father's Day, Dad. So, Dad, today's sign-off is for you. Thanks for listening, and until next time, IWALABT for you.